I had us ending a half hour early, so we'll be okay. All right, now is your full attention here? And nothing is focused on digestion, right? All right. That's right. Okay. Okay, Brett or Sharon, can you just press the button? Well, people are going a little crazy. Shall we shut the door a little? I answer my own question.
Okay, Kathy, 45 minutes. Okay.
Okay, everybody. It's Kathy. Uh-oh, how did I get unplugged? Wait a second. Francis, can you find my plug here? Would you be willing? I don't know what happened here. It's that big black, big black thing there. Is there no big black?
I'm not really good at this kind of thing. Is it you're looking for?
The big black one. Is there no big black one? That's it, that's it. That power cord, and I just want to plug in. I got unplugged, and for some reason my exhausted computer is not responding. That'll be fine, thank you. Okay, you failed the fifth rate test. Good.
Always give me an extra $5.
Okay. Okay. Good to see you back, and we're into the fluid areas now. Okay? Fluid areas.
Digestive fluid.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Let's all settle down.
Welcome, everyone, after lunch. Hope you can focus. Hope I can focus.
You're the inspiring one. That's
Yes, okay. Since astrology is, esoteric astrology involves an ability to develop the intuition. And in order to do that, we have to work at our own alignment in meditation, or else we're stuck on the lower mental plane. And so the true esoteric astrology is only able to be unfolded as we can build a bridge to the higher realms. So I thought that to facilitate that, just sort of a symbol of that, we would just do a brief alignment before we start. So I think Michael had the same idea this morning, so.
just a brief alignment, yes.
Just brief. Yours wasn't brief. Hopefully mine will be brief. So, just have a little musical interlude to begin. I don't know if the music isn't working, Bob.
Turn your volume up.
Yeah, it's up. Okay. So silently sound the Om, purifying the three lower vehicles: the physical astral, the physical etheric, the astral, and the mental vehicle. So as a group, we're projecting the antakarana and we're imagining ourselves as a group moving into higher realms and standing outside a door above which a sign reads, "Speak low and only if a need be there." And now we see that door slowly opening, revealing a long hallway leading into, in this case, the astrological ashram. See the group slowly walking up the hallway. Entering a room full of peace and calm, of books, of charts, and enterprise. Visualize that scene. At the desk, the teacher sits and works and thinks, projecting thought, working within, above, and all around, while through the room pass many. It is their right to pass. Hold the mind sensitive to this impression. See the leader of the group with his hands outstretched, making a symbolic offering to the teacher, an offering that symbolizes a group project or some work that contributes to the ashram. This is a group contribution, only a group contribution to the old unfolding plan. What is this offering? See the teacher rising from his chair and turning around to look out the window facing towards the east. See the group gathered behind him, pouring out the energy of light and love to the waiting and receptive world. See that light blending with the light already pulsating within humanity. May the holy ones, whose disciples we aspire to become, show us the light we seek. Give us the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who dwell in the eternal. There is a power which maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self as one. May that peace brood over us, that power uplift us, till we stand where the one initiator is invoked, until we see his star shine forth. And we'll close with 3 ohms. So, I chose this topic of the fluid areas as a reflection on one of DK's statements. There's 3 statements, 3 suggestions. The third one is related to the fluid areas, but we can read the first 2 as well, because that's also part of this talk. Will be encompassing some of these ideas. If the investigating astrologer will substitute the esoteric planets for the orthodox exoteric planets, he will get much instructive information, and if he perseveres, the verification of my ideas. 2, if he will distinguish between the effects of the sacred planets and the non-sacred planets, he will find the sacred planets endeavor to fuse the personality and make it the instrument of the soul, and the non-sacred planets influence more specifically the form nature. Much light on the pull between the pairs of opposites may then pour in. And this is the section. If you will study the fluid area, where the planets veiled by the sun and moon come into play, and will realize that he must decide from a study of the chart of the subject and any knowledge he may have, what is the point in evolution reached, and which of the 3 veiled planets is the ruler, he will get much intuitive understanding. He will find himself able to throw much light on the problem of the probationary disciple when considering the exoteric rulers, and on the problems of disciples when dealing with the esoteric rulers. So I consider this talk a fluid talk, and a talk that hopefully will give room for those of you who have thought about these things, or those of you who have some thoughts about them now. Will feel free to either disagree with what I might say, or jump in and share your own ideas and thoughts about this, because I think that as the beginning visualization tried to portray, it's a group process, esoteric astrology. If we're going to penetrate into some deeper truths in this most ancient of all sciences, we have to do so as a group. And so, although we can do that in consciousness, perhaps when we're here together, there's an opportunity to have a collective pushing through of the portal, and some ideas can possibly flow into our group field. So if you have any thoughts to share, I really encourage you to do that. Because I don't have any real full answers to how to use these ideas, but I have some ideas. One thing is that he does say in this third point that we have to have some understanding of the place in the evolutionary ladder where our client or our person that we're attempting to understand their horoscope, we have to have some understanding of where they are. And that's not always necessarily easy, as you know, from just your experience with, we all try and figure out each other. It's something we do. And you often know that sometimes people, you might misjudge them. And so it's not necessarily easy just to look at someone and know where they are on the path. But he seems to indicate that this area of the horoscope will provide us with a place where we can attempt to understand where a person is and then apply these different veilings, which Francis was talking a lot about last night. The sun and the moon veil different planets. And so depending, the way I interpret this, at least depending upon the place in the ladder of evolution where your client or your person stands, that will indicate which planet you use. And these specific points, in my understanding, are related to the house cusps, primarily. Because in this section of esoteric astrology, he's talking about the houses, So while we often think of the sun and moon veiling planets, and they certainly do, and I don't mean to disagree with that, he's also talking about using house rulers, because we all know that every house of a horoscope is ruled by a planet. And this section is specifically related to the houses. So my approach to this is that we look at the houses in a horoscope that are ruled by the signs wherein the moon or the sun rules. So those are primarily Cancer, as we all know, because Cancer is ruled exoterically by the moon. Then we look at Leo, the next house, which is ruled by the sun. And then we would also use Virgo, because when we're working from the reversed wheel, we know that Virgo is ruled by the moon. So it's interesting to note right off the bat that those three signs are consecutive. So it brings in quite a fluid area of a horoscope. In everybody's horoscope, that area is going to be subject to interpretive skills on the part of the astrologer. And he says, by whatever knowledge we might have of this person before us, or by our own intuitive understanding of them, and by their horoscope. The horoscope sometimes can reveal certain clues to us about where this person might stand on the path. But as Maria Christina noted yesterday, a chicken can be born on the same day as a Christ. So it's not really necessarily the case. But nonetheless, the horoscope does give some clues, perhaps, to which rulership to use. And then if we also extend it a little bit further, we can also know that the moon rules in Aquarius on the hierarchical level. So it sets up an interesting configuration in a horoscope, a yod. We might say the moon forms a yod with Aquarius, Cancer, and Virgo. All three, the moon ruling in Aquarius again, hierarchically, Cancer exoterically, Virgo esoterically. So all three bases are covered in that yod that is surrounding Leo, which is ruled in all three cases by the sun. So from a certain angle, you might say that placement of the sun there is indicative of the fact that the personality ruled is the sun, is the personality, Leo, the personality, is a reflection of something that needs to be worked on by these various aspects of the moon, or they work in tandem. There's something about that configuration surrounding the sun which says to me that it's instrumental, the energetic flow, whatever planet you're using as the veil for those houses is influencing the ability of the sun to rise to a new level, There's something there. So Here is another passage that follows on, not too far, the next page in esoteric astrology, which is related to this and something else I wanted to bring in. Ordinary humanity is ruled by the exoteric planets. Advanced humanity, disciples, initiates by the esoteric. We know that. The sun sign with the exoteric planetary rulers rules the personality, indicates inheritance and equipment, and is a summation of that which has been thus providing the background. And the rising sign with the esoteric planetary rulers indicates soul purpose, points the way to the future. We know that. Okay. Then he says the horoscope built around the sun sign is adequate for ordinary humanity. The exoteric planets rule, and the man lives within the limitations of the 12 houses. But the horoscope built around the rising sign, with the esoteric planets ruling, will convey the destiny of the disciple. Okay. The sun sign governed by the ruling esoteric planets and the rising sign governed by the esoteric planets can be used in casting the horoscope of the initiate. When superimposed upon each other, the outer life of the initiate in the three worlds and the inner life of subjective realization will appear. And then in the next one, he says, use the sun sign with the exoteric rulers and the rising sign with the esoteric rulers when working with the chart of a disciple. So I just have a few thoughts about this, and I know Nicholas works with this, and so he probably has some things to share. So I think here he's talking about, the two different charts that we can use at our understanding now. Maybe in the future we'll move into some other understanding of what a soul chart is and what a more personality-based chart is. But for now, we could use I think it's called the solar chart, where you place the sun on the rising degree. That's more of our chart as reflective of our personality life. I think that's what he's saying here. So in the case of an ordinary person, you use the exoteric or traditional rulers. So you just start with whatever your sun sign is. If you're an Aries rising, you put Aries on the first house, ruled by Mars. And even in the case of disciples, he's saying that. That's your solar chart, right? Traditional astrologers use this a lot, especially if you don't know the ascendant of a person. You work with this chart. It's the solar chart, I think it's called. So you use those traditional rulers. And you're going to have a section of that horoscope, which is going to be the Cancer house, the Leo house, and the Virgo house. And in the case of an Aries rising, it's going to be the 4th, 5th, and 6th houses. So that area of the horoscope, in the case of someone who's an ordinary person, he says Cancer, the Cancer house, will veil Vulcan. Vulcan will veil in the case of an ordinary person in the Cancer house. I think that's the way I'm interpreting this. So I don't think we would negate the rulership that we usually ordinary use, which would be the moon ruling the 4th house of an Aries sun sign chart. But we would also want to bring in, if we're trying to work with someone, to see what other influences under this fluid area is ruling them in that house of the home. So you could bring in a Vulcan influence there. If you're working with someone who's a disciple, someone who is moving towards discipleship, moving out of the phase of lower mind, moving out of the phase of purely purificatory energies, because I think that Vulcan would rule in that house when you're just starting out on the path. But then I think you would start shifting into Neptunian rulership. While you're coming under a strong mystical bent in your life, for many, many lives. We're conditioned by the Neptunian influence, I would say. And that's very strong, you know. And if you're working with somebody who's, many of the people that we would be working with, I think, would be in that category. You know, Neptune would be coming through very strong in the 4th house as the ruler of the house, the cusp of the house. It would be coming in very strong under Leo, because they'd be working with the esoteric ruler of that house. And then if you move into Virgo, you could say that Neptune is also coming into control in that house, because he does say that the moon veils both Vulcan and Neptune in the case of Virgo. So it would present a fluid area in the horoscope where the planet Neptune, bringing in this strong heart-centered energy, would be very, very powerfully coming into control. And so I think that would give us an ability to work with these people in a different way than we normally do. And so I just thought that was an interesting idea to consider. And then if the person is moving into true discipleship, which Elena said was accepted discipleship between the 2nd and 3rd initiation, then Uranus comes in, very much on the level of probably all 3 positions, not necessarily in the Virgo position, but definitely in Cancer, definitely in Leo. That influence of Uranus would come into play if we use it as the moon being veiled by those influences. So I think that it's an interesting hypothesis. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about that, any of the astrologers or any of the audience members. And you feel free to, of course, disagree with any of these ideas. Rose?
On the earlier slide, when it was talking about casting the 2 charts and superimposing them, you were saying putting the rising sign in the place of the sun. Is that what you said?
Well, I didn't really fully explain that yet, but it would be one chart is with the sun on the place of the ascendant, and the other chart would be the regular chart with the ascendant where it's normally placed. So I think he's saying superimpose the personality chart, which is the sun on the ascendant, with the tradition, in the case of a disciple, with the ordinary house cusps ruled by the exoteric planets, superimposed in the case of a disciple on a horoscope with the esoteric planets ruling the houses.
Would that be the same if you put the ascendant as the sun, like moved it to where making the sun sign the ascendant sign, just like shifting it? Would that be the same?
Sun sign. Well, that's what it is. That's what the soul chart is putting the sun sign as the ascendant. That's exactly what it is. That's what it is. So when you superimpose those 2, I believe he's saying, look at the house cusps as, in the case of the sun sign chart, as the traditional planets ruling, and in the case of the soul chart, which is more of our traditional planet, we use the esoteric planets ruling. So I think a lot of information can be gathered by how those 2 different house rulerships, how the planetary patterns set up, and you can learn a lot about a person. If you study your own horoscope, for example, or study the horoscope of someone famous in the world, you could learn a lot about how each house in the horoscope is being conditioned. On the one hand, in the outer world, the person is ruled by, say in the case of an Aries sun, their first house is ruled by Mars. So oftentimes an Aries sun person can be very Martian, right down on the physical plane, out there, pushing agendas. But if we look at someone who has then, say, Cancer rising, like Michael, Aries Sun, Cancer rising being one of those fluid areas, we'd want to say, well, what's really controlling him esoterically? Well, I think in that case, it's mostly clear. It's Neptune, because it isn't veiled. It's not veiled by the moon on the esoteric level. So in the case, therefore, you just look at that first house. On the one hand, it's really out there, ruled by Mars. But on an esoteric level, it's ruled by Neptune. 2 6th ray energies coming together. You don't negate, as he says in the case of a disciple, you don't negate the influence of Mars. You don't negate it. It's very much still with that person in that first house, giving them a lot of energy and a lot of drive. But in the case of this Cancer rising person, coming in with Neptune is really speaking a lot about transmuting Mars and really aiding with that combination, I would say. Really aiding the ability of that person to sublimate the Martian energy into its higher correspondence. So it's quite a very fortuitous combination, I would say. And you can do the same all the way around, right? So if in the case of like the rising sign with Michael, in that case, I think it's really showing where the struggles are and where the opportunities are, because he says that the non-sacred planets in a house make that house very mundane, in a sense. It's related more to the outer world. It's related to conditions that the personality is going to bring to light. So for an Aries sun, that first house is going to be a challenge, because in the esoteric astrology, the first house is related to soul purpose. So that sort of soul purpose, in a way, is a challenge. Mars is a challenge, to soul purpose. But it also is a really powerful planet that can, as Michael said this morning, move us, give us a lot of aspiration. We work with a higher octave if we're a disciple. So in that regard, it's going to move that person into their soul purpose, So then it's a really fortuitous combination. But probably that Aries person is not going to be 100% aspirational, and they are going to be very, very connected to the lower aspects of Mars, which would be an impediment to that soul purpose coming through, But say you come to a house where there are 2 non-sacred planets. One in the soul chart, that house is ruled by a non-sacred planet, and in the personality chart, ruled by a non-sacred planet. That house will be more of a challenge in the physical world to that person if they're striving. Yeah, Eva.
I can ask it without the mic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, what I'm wondering, for greater clarity for me, so let's take another sun sign, and let's put Libra, for example. Let's put Libra on the cusp for the first house. So would you still look at Mars, because Mars is the traditional ruler of that house, or would you look at Venus?
Venus.
So you would look at Venus, and in case of Michael's Cancer rising, you'd look at Venus and Neptune.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that, again, is a very fortuitous combination chosen by your soul, because I know that you have that combination. In my understanding, it would really, because Venus being the sacred planet that it is, Neptune, sacred planet, seems that combination would give you a very fortuitous opportunity in this life to come under soul purpose, to the extent that you could use your mind in a higher way. The Venus mind could get stuck in the concrete, but if you can use it, coming under the influence of your Neptune, then you can really move into alignment with soul purpose. So you do that in every house.
Kathy, perhaps you can put a chart through on.
I have one that I'm very embarrassed at my bad charts and my bad PowerPoint, but I will do that. It's oh my gosh, I have the wrong thing. I made a big effort not to get, I guess I have different PowerPoints and I thought this was the one that had the correct thing, but it's not. Let me try and see if I can find the other one. I might have deleted it. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. I had a couple of people with examples, but I might have just deleted the wrong one. Maybe this one will have it, we'll see. Not that one. I'll try one more time. Try this one.
That's the one you just did.
That's the one, that's what I thought, okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm not always organized. Well, unfortunately I deleted it, I think. Sorry about that. But, I have a couple horoscopes, but they're not really the ones that I wanted. Okay. All right. I don't have the other. I just have this one. This is a different chart than many people will get if they Google Leonardo da Vinci birth chart. But I think it's accurate because I was watching a documentary, a BBC kind of well-researched documentary, wherein they said that there were notes in a journal of his father, Leonardo's father, which gave the exact time of his birth. And I ran the chart, and it was very different than what the charts that they give you online are. So, and I think this makes a lot of sense with Pisces rising. The moon and Jupiter conjunct on the ascendant. So we could just look at this, and I chose this example because Leonardo is obviously one of those people where the Tibetan would say you use the esoteric rulerships on both levels. So in his soul chart, quote unquote, Pisces is rising. So we would look at Neptune and Pluto as the rulers of the first house. Probably just, we work with Pluto principally. And then if we work with the sun superimposing that, what would we use for the ruler of the sun, of the first house? What would be the ruler? Vulcan, right. So that you would see there a very powerful combination being set up in his first house, right? Vulcan ruling the sun, Pluto ruling the rising sign. Not necessarily an easy combination, you know? If you know anything about Leonardo's life, he had, in one sense, he had an idyllic place to grow up, but he was a bastard child in a time when that was, you know, sort of a challenge. His mother, he was totally separated from his mother. The father didn't recognize the mother. He was raised by a wealthy father, but his mother, who was was taken away from him, not allowed to see him. And then his father married someone else. So I think it was quite difficult for a sensitive child. I mean, and his emotional life, while he was a great creative genius. I think his emotional life suffered a lot from this early situation. So I think that might be one way you could look at the Vulcan-Pluto combination in the first house. But on the higher turn of the spiral, that combination would give a tremendous will, right? And we know that Leonardo was a fourth ray soul. And there is, in a sense, a link between the fourth ray and the first ray. I think that he must have had a lot of first ray energies working on some level in his life. And then we could just go through the second house. In this more soul related chart, the second house would be ruled by what? Well, no. Aries is ruling the house cusp, so what would be the Mercury? Now this is his more the soul-based chart. So Mercury would be ruling the second house. He certainly was a lover of gathering knowledge, much light. He was a perpetual student, always seeking more and more truth. And then if we put Taurus on the rising sign, what would be ruling the second house cusp then? Venus. What we want to use here, in this case, we're going to use, so Taurus would be there. Yes, Venus, you're right. Okay, I was getting a little lost. So Venus would rule that second house on a personality level, using the esoteric ruler of Gemini, and on a soul level, Mercury. Mercury would be ruling. So on his second house, related to gathering knowledge, he would have Venus and Mercury. What a beautiful combination also for someone of the fourth ray. Mercury being the soul ruler of that ray. You know, we don't know what his personality ray is, but I'm sure people have some thoughts. He certainly had a lot of fifth ray. I don't know what his personality ray was, but it's a beautifully creative combination for the second house, or for any house, for that matter. And then for the third house, it would be, in this soul chart, would be ruled by what? Taurus. You can't really see, but it would be ruled by Taurus. So Vulcan, right? Vulcan would come in. And then on the other level, it would be Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Neptune, right? Neptune and Vulcan. So it's just a way of working with a horoscope. When you look at the two rulers of, pretend this is the one chart and this is the other, you'll look at the two rulers. In the case of a disciple, the outer wheel will be ruled by the exoteric planets. The inner wheel ruled by the esoteric. So you can see whenever a house has two exoteric planets ruling it, that's going to be a real struggle. That house could be a real struggle where you've got to bring the energies of that house, whatever it is, say it's the second house, that person might have real struggles, with that second house issues. But if they're both esoteric planets, like it's in the case of Eva's rising sign, maybe the soul's giving you an opportunity to really move into alignment with the higher energies. So you can do it for yourself and experiment and see if you can learn anything about yourself and get greater insight into your own issues and challenges and strengths. It might be something that would be helpful. Anybody have any? Yeah, Elena.
Am I on?
Mm.
Hello?
Yeah.
No? Yes? Okay. Have you tried to figure out yourself, I mean, the sacred and non-sacred planets, which houses they are ruling?
Well, he tells us, right?
Yeah, I would like to know, how did you figure it out yourself? Because it's not so easy as it appears.
What do you mean? I'm not sure I'm following you.
Well, if you take the chart with the Aries rising,
Okay, which planets are ruled by non-sacred planets?
yes, and sacred planets.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, he gives us that, but maybe you're saying there's some veils in
Yes,
relation.
there is a major issue there.
Okay, well,
I like your opinion about that.
okay. Let's go back to, at least I have one of the images that I wanted. Okay, so just have this as an introduction, sort of, to a brief introduction, just so that it's a visual that gives us some information. So we're told that there's 5 non-sacred planets. Mars, and these are the 4 non-sacred planets. Mars, Pluto, the Moon, and the Sun.
And the Earth.
And the Earth, right. That's the 5th non-sacred
Thank
planet.
you.
So there's 4 non-sacred planets ruling a fifth non-sacred planet. And this image gives us that beautifully, you know. It shows that. How we work with that in a horoscope is another thing. But, so I have some understanding on my level, but I just wanted to use some of the slides related to that. If I'm afraid Okay, yeah, here's that slide. So I thought it was interesting, Eleanor, when I was reading these passages where he's talking about these non-sacred planets and where they rule. And you probably have quite a few thoughts about it too. So I might again point out that Mars is the transmitter of 6-ray force, and it is this which makes the first house of action in the physical body that of the devotee who fights for that which he desires or for that to which he aspires. The warrior devoted to a cause comes into being upon the field of action, the earth, which is in itself an expression of third ray of intelligent activity. Aries, the first house, and Mars and the earth initiate conflict focused in a form. So I do think he gives us some interesting things to consider with this passage and with all these passages, which is related to that idea that the 4 non-sacred planets govern the earth. He's bringing in the influence of the earth in this first house. So to me, it seems that he's saying that the energy of the earth is the underlying energy in all the houses. The earth, because this is a horoscope of a personality, and he relates the personality very much to the earth in a number of cases. So our personality is ruled and governed by various chakra systems, right? The non-sacred, the lower chakras, the higher chakras. And I think he's saying here that that's what a physical body is like. No, Elena's saying no. Okay.
Well,
That's okay.
if you bring that reference where he is putting the
planet, four
non-sacred planets ruling the
earth.
If
Really?
you bring that reference, it would be much clearer, because you see, I have done some research on this.
Yeah.
And what I was really interested in that, what was your opinion? Because he is saying which of these planets rule the non-sacred houses. Mars, the first house.
Yeah.
You know, this division. And what I was really interested, what was your opinion? Which houses would you have put as the 5 houses ruled by the non-sacred planet and the seven sacred planets ruling the sacred houses?
Yeah.
You see, this is a significant in astrological interpretation.
Yeah.
And I was interested, what was your, what conclusion you have arrived yourself?
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm...
Because the Earth represents the personality.
Right.
And the four other non-sacred planet rules the 4 fields, including the etheric.
Yes.
Of the personality. You
Yes.
see, that is from the perspective of the personality.
Yeah.
But there is also from the perspective of the houses, because we have the fluid, you call areas, where the non-sacred houses are related to the personality issue and are blockaging influences.
Right.
You see, and my interest is that if you work with this non-sacred, sacred planet, how did you arrive and what is your opinion? Which are these houses? The 5 non-sacred and 7 non-sacred houses.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But we'll have to now move on.
Okay. Well,
We have no time now.
yeah. Okay.
I suggest you do talk about it.
All right.
Well, I thought she
Because we
had
started
worked
15
with
minutes
it,
late, so we
and
have to.
I just like to have the opinion.
Right. Well, we'll have to do that later.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.